Hello and welcome to my channel. I am shooting in a hotel, so this is why it looks much different than usual. I just wanted to stop in and give some context to this video. If you've been around here for a while, you know that I recently took a road trip to Philadelphia where I spent 4 days. One of those days I did a tour of Independence Hall and I recorded that entire tour. And so that's what this video is going to be. I also included some photos and things to spice it up a little, but I encourage you to watch the entire video. It is very interesting. And if you haven't watched any of my other recent travel content, there are links in the description, and there will be links at the end of this video also. I hope you enjoy this tour of Independence Hall.
On behalf of the National Park Service, I'd like to welcome you to the Pennsylvania State House. How many of you expected me to say Independence Hall? You all did, didn't you? You should have, because that's what's on your tickets, that's what's on our signs. But Independence Hall is a nickname. None of your founding fathers would know what you're talking about. They're all dead by the time this building gets that nickname. Its real name is the Pennsylvania State House, and it is the center of government for the colony of Pennsylvania, the nation state of Pennsylvania under the Articles of Confederation, and finally the U.S. state of Pennsylvania under the Constitution. My name is Jane, and I will be your ranger. How many of you are from the U.S.? Raise your hands. Okay. Anybody that didn't raise their hand? Where are you from?
I'm from Japan. From Japan?
Japan, okay. Anybody else?
I'm from Sweden.
You're from Sweden, okay. All right. Well, welcome. People come to see this building from all over the world. Usually I have at least one representative from every continent on every tour. This time we're only getting In the 1760s, Parliament starts passing lots of laws that the colonists subject to. And there'll start to be protests. And those protests didn't just happen out in the street. They happened in rooms like we're standing in. We look around the room, we can see that it's a courthouse, right? Our evidence that it's a courthouse, we have jury boxes, trial by jury, one of your basic rights as a British citizen. We have a witness stand, an evidence box or box for documents. You'll notice there's no doors. You're entitled to a public trial. And you would have been standing out there in the 18th century watching the goings on. And of course, we have our judge's bench, our common law books, as they call them. And up there we, of course, have Lady Justice. Yeah. Justice has always come from a woman. You might want to remember that, guys. And finally, the dock. Do I look innocent or guilty? Innocent. I want you on my jury. You know, I want you on my jury too. For those of you that just laughed and thought guilty, don't want to say it though, I don't want you. The law is innocent until proven guilty. In fact, that's one of the reasons we get rid of the dock. It prejudices the jury. It is still used in some places. By the 1770s, things have gone from bad to worse. And in 1773, the Parliament's had it, and they've especially had it with the protests going on in the courts, which is jury nullification. This is where the jury ignores the evidence, either because they think the law is unjust, or maybe for more nefarious reasons. It's those cases that you look at and say, how did they come to that conclusion? Based on the evidence. It's got a name, jury nullification. And so in order to combat this, I mean, if we're honest, no one is convicted of smuggling at this point. They can't get a conviction no matter what they do. And so they pass what they call the coercive acts. And one of those acts was the Boston port closure. Abigail Adams described it like this: "Our ports are shut, our commerce is ruined, and the halls of justice closed. Thousands reduced to what? All the horrors of civil war. Civil war, a war between the same peoples." Abigail Adams in 1774 considers herself British with all the rights of a British citizen. Boston sends Paul Revere to Philadelphia, and he asks Philadelphians to please host a meeting. And Philadelphia will say yes. Why? They enclosed Boston was to stop from closing us. The only difference between Boston and us is they advertise it more. And so we will host that meeting a block and a half away. You can actually go in there today. It's at Carpenter's Hall. Today we call that meeting the First Continental Congress. They passed a series of petitions and sent them and agreed to come back the following spring to get their response from the Crown and Parliament. And when they do, they're going to meet in the room across the hall. But before we go over there, I want to talk about an incident that happened in this room. On July 8, 1776, Colonel John Nixon will read the Declaration of Independence to the public for the very first time, right out in the square we just left. And when he finishes, he sends in a Pennsylvania regiment to tear down the symbol of British authority, the unicorn and the lion. That night, they'll burn it. So what are we to make of this incident? Is it treason? How about destruction of public property? They left a big hole up there. That's why the Pennsylvania coat of arms is up there today. And this building was built with Pennsylvania tax dollars. We always taxed ourselves. Or was it the lawful removal of an offending object based on the Declaration of Independence? Well, just like today, it all depends on who's doing the talking. And so let's go across the hall. Please move to the left and to the right. In the spring of 1775, we find 13 tables. It is the first time all 13 colonies will be together. They had arrived hopeful, only to find there is no response from the Crown to the Parliament. Instead, word has come that fighting has broken out up in Massachusetts. And what do these guys do about it? They write another petition. That's what they did. It's called the Olive Branch Petition, and agree to wait for their response. It'll be 2 months before John Adams will nominate George Washington to go out and try to start an army from the colony's well-regulated militias. We won't see him back in this room for 12 years. And when we do, he's sitting in that chair. It's a whole year later before Richard Henry Lee makes the motion we have to be free and independent states. And what does Congress do? Well, they do what they always do. They tabled it and started a committee. We love our committees. And this one is going to be John Adams, chairman, currently serving on 52 other committees. Ben Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, Mr. Livingston, and Mr. Sherman. And their job is to write a document which will explain to the rest of the world why this, in fact, is not treason, but comes under the rule of law. Do not confuse it with law and order. They are two separate things. And they start with the premise that government is a social contract. It is a contract between the people doing the governing and the people being governed. And under contract law, when one side breaks the contract, what is the obligation of the other side? And so they sit down and they start listing all the ways in which the Crown and the Parliament have broken that contract with the colonies. And ladies and gentlemen, taxes is only on there one time. And it's probably the least of the problems. But if I open any American textbook, if I ask any of you that were educated in the States, they're going to tell me what the primary issue was taxes, aren't you? Yeah. So why do we do that? We do that because taxes was the unifier. Not every family had to quarter soldiers. Not every family lost property. Not every family had a loved one hauled off before the secret Admiralty Court, or worse yet, taken to Nova Scotia or London to stand trial. Not every family had a loved one injured or killed. But every single person, didn't matter what your religion was, didn't matter what language you spoke, didn't matter what the color of your skin was. In fact, it didn't even matter if you were free or unfree. Taxes affected you. And frankly, ladies and gentlemen, it's the only one you could get a good slogan out of. And that slogan, of course, is no taxation without representation. And will become the backbone of our government. We're still using it 247 years later. Jefferson takes that list, creates the document, brings it to Ben Franklin, who edits it. What does he take out? He takes out everything that he views as divisive. And ladies and gentlemen, there is no more divisive issue than slavery. It's been a hot button issue here since 1750 in Philadelphia. By the time of the Revolutionary War, 50% of the black population is already free, and they will fight in the Revolutionary War. But we need everybody. And so Ben Franklin will take that out. They bring it in, and what does the Congress do? Well, what does the Congress always do? They put it to the side. Yeah, we haven't voted yet, don't know if we're gonna vote, The motion's still tabled. It'll be July 2nd when they will finally vote to declare independency. John Adams got up early on the morning of July 3rd to write to his wife and children that July 2nd will be your annual festival. How many of us celebrate July 2nd? Birthday? So now you have another thing on your birthday. Did you know that they approved? Yeah. But they don't approve the Declaration. That won't happen until around noon on July 4th. And because they do not approve the document until then, when they send it to the printer, it'll have July 4th for the date. They wanted to go viral, so they ordered 200 copies, read in the town squares, posted, reprinted in the newspapers. And because of that, people heard July 4th. They saw July 4th. And if they could actually read, they'd read July 4th. And so that's the date they want to celebrate. Now, what are we really celebrating? We're not going to get independence for many years. That's going to take 7 more years of war. So what does this document actually do? It starts to create one people, a people that has nothing in common with each other. E pluribus unum, out of many comes one. The only thing, in fact, we have in common is everybody agrees with the ideals. All men are created equal. You have the right to decide who's going to govern you, and the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Ideals we're still working on today. No, we have no hope of winning this Revolutionary War. No, I'm gonna back up here a little. I bet you some of us, you are wondering about the signing, right? They won't decide to do that until the 18th of July and won't start signing in here till August 2nd. You see, politicians then are just like politicians today. They only do what they think they have support for. And it's only after the demonstrations they decide they have enough support to do one signed document. For more on the documents, go next door to West Wing and also down to Franklin Court to our printing office. Now, for us to win this war, we're going to have to find some friends. And it's not very hard, because all we're looking for is other countries that don't like Great Britain, which is basically the rest of the world. And so it's not real hard. And in fact, there'll be battles out in the Pacific, there'll be battles in the Indian Ocean from some of these other countries that are trying to keep the British Navy busy for us. But at the end of the war, we have a lot of money that we've got to pay back. France, the Dutch, Spain, we've got pretty much lots and lots of bills. And no way of doing it, because the Articles of Confederation had no taxation authority, and everything had to be unanimous. It's very hard to get a unanimous decision. And so nothing was being done. All of these former colonies now consider themselves their own little nation states. And in fact, by 1787, we're starting to see a border war erupt again on the New Jersey-New York border. This can't go on. It's time for another meeting. 1787, we again come in this room and again find 13 tables. Anyone here from Rhode Island? Rhode Island, please raise your hand. Yeah, see, she never shows up. And because she boycotted the proceedings under the rule of law, they could not change the Articles of Confederation. So what can they do? They decide they can take all these ideas that are coming from these men, smush them together, and come up with a new form of government. 12 men got up and walked out and said that isn't what they were sent here for. 3 others will spend 4 months arguing, debating, compromising, and then they'll refuse to sign. Why could they do that? They're just offering an option. Under the rule of law, you can come up with options and hand out and say, would you like to do this instead? That's all they were doing. Changing the articles, you couldn't do that under the rule of law. Ben Franklin, worried that this is going to be a failure, at 81 years of age, will struggle to his feet. And he'll give a speech in which he says, when you get this number of men together with all their bias and all their prejudices, it amazed him that the document came so near to perfect, and he begged them to sign. When they had, he said, I have often looked at the sun on the back of the president's chair and wondered if it was a rising or a setting sun. I now have the happiness to know that it is, in fact, a rising sun. On his way home, he ran into Mrs. Powell, who wanted to know what they'd been up to. He said, Madam, you have a republic if you can keep it. Ladies and gentlemen, you are truly standing in the birthplace of the United States of America. And today you are joining millions and millions and millions of others that have been coming to this room. Some have been dignitaries. Abraham Lincoln, Frederick Douglass, Alice Paul, Martin Luther King. But most have been everyday people, just like me. And it doesn't matter which one you are. If you are lucky enough to live in a country that allows you to vote for your representatives, the fact of the matter is, at some point, you are going to have to answer to Benjamin Franklin. Is it going to be a rising or a setting sun under your leadership? And you've been given a republic. Are you going to keep it? The opening words of the Constitution of the United States is "we, the people," to form a more perfect union. How are you going to do that? Establish justice. Provide for the common defense. Promote the general welfare. And secure the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I'll take questions outside.